have here our first lab that we're going to build our gable roof system. I've pre-cut my common rafters, and I also have my barge rafters pre-cut that do not have the bird's mouth. We'll show you how those install later in the video here. And we have a ridge board. In this case, this is a 1x4 ridge. Normally we would be using 2x material. For the lab here, a 1x is fine. We've also laid out our mock wall plates. Our span for this particular lab is 49 inches from the outside of the wall plates. The length of our building is 8 foot end to end. And we've also laid out for the position of our common rafters. So we'll have a total of 3 mid-common rafters, a gable rafter on each end, and we'll also have a lookout and a barge rafter on either end. We're going to be screwing our roof together so that we can take it apart later. If we were building this in the real world, we would probably be using hammers and nails or a nail gun. But for this exercise, we'll be using typically 3-inch wood screws, square drive with a square drive screwdriver. So we are going to talk about how we lay out the position of our common rafters. This roof will have rafters that are 24 inches on center. And when we say on center, what we mean is that the center of the thickness of each rafter will be at whatever spacing we specify. In this case, 24 inches will be center to center of each rafter. The first one, the gable end rafter, will be flush with the outside of the wall plate, and so it will sit from the flush to 1.5 inches in on the end here. And if I hold my rafter up like so, it will actually be down here. It will protrude 1.5 inches. So the first one is not necessarily on center, but will be starting at the face of the rafter. The subsequent rafter will be centered on our 24-inch mark. If you look closely at my tape here, you'll notice that my line is actually at the 23.25 mark. Okay, because my rafters are 1.5 inches thick, my on-center mark will be at my 24 inches. Okay, that will be, the 24 will be the center line of my common rafter. But I'm going to mark 3/4 over, or half the thickness of my rafter, so that I can line up one face of my rafter to that line. If I mark a line at the 24 mark, I won't be able to see the line when I put my rafter in place. So that's why I mark it at the face of the rafter. It doesn't matter which side you pull necessarily, as long as it's half the thickness of the rafter, one side or the other. And if you prefer, you can mark both sides. Some people like to mark both sides, but efficiency-wise, it's best to just make one mark. And then, of course, the following mark over here, okay, again, 48 will be the center of our next rafter. We pull back 3/4, mark a line, and that again is the face of our next rafter. And we go down the entire length of the building or the wall until we get to the end. The end one again is flush to the outside of the wall. So here is our rafter. Our mark, remember, is at 23.25 from the end of our wall. So that represents the near face of our rafter. So our rafter is going to nest right up to that mark and install right there. So when we install our common rafters onto our wall plate, we're going to be using 3-inch wood screws. And we want to position our screws at the shortest distance to our corner of our wall plate. This will allow about 1 inch of penetration of our screw. If we install it up here, we won't get much penetration of the screw, so we want to keep it right where it's going to grab the most wood. I'm going to get my screw started here, so I'm going to eyeball it center of my thickness and right about at the short point, and get it about not quite all the way through. You shouldn't be seeing the screw poking through yet, but at least it's started well enough that you can not have to hold the screw. The first one I'm going to flush to the outside of my wall plate. So I'm flush right there, and I will screw it in place. I can set my matching one on the opposite side here. Again, flush with the outside of the wall plate. And you'll notice up here, they don't necessarily line up, but that's okay because we haven't positioned our ridge yet. So when we position our ridge, they should fall properly. And then we'll do the opposite side the same way. Flush to the outside of the wall plate. You can see our pattern rafter with our theoretical mark, our 2-inch head above plate, and our overall dimension. I'm now ready to install my ridge. My ridge, in this case, is the same length as my wall. And for this particular lab, since our rafters are self-supporting, since they're not so big, we can simply take our ridge and slip it up in between our two sets of end rafters. And then we simply have to align the top end, the head cut of our rafters, so that the outside is flush with the top flat of the ridge, and also flush at the end. You can screw through the top here, or you can also screw through the face. Typically, when you're installing rafters, you'll nail several nails, two to three nails, at a slight angle through the face of the ridge, both directions, into the rafters. And do the same on the other end. And then you can proceed with installing your mid-common rafters on your layout marks.